guys, so today's video I'm going to go over most of the layer blend modes in Procreate and the ones that I use the most and what I use them for. Okay, so I have an image here that I painted of Indiana Jones and we're gonna start off. I have a new layer on top of everything else I've painted so far, and right now the first one we're gonna start with is set to normal, and I'm just gonna go ahead and pick this charcoal block brush because that's one I like to use a lot. Make sure the opacity is all the way up, and when something is set to normal, it does exactly what it sounds like. It does not interact with any of the layers beneath it or above it or in any way, shape, or form. It's simply set to normal. You can use this for painting. Most of this image I painted on normal. Pretty much all of his face, this layer is just on one layer, and it's all set to normal. Okay? So that's what you use normal for. Pretty basic, right? So from there, things break down into a handful of categories. Okay, so first we have, we're gonna start with darken. First one we have is multiply. Okay, what multiply does is it takes whatever pigment you're painting and it multiplies it by whatever is underneath. Okay, so white does nothing. If you have your pigment all the way to white, it won't show up at all, and it looks like I'm erasing, but really I'm painting in white. If we adjust my darkness and bring it down, you can see that there is paint there, but when it's white you can't see it. Okay, black is absolute. It goes all the way. It just multiplies everything black. Okay, so what I use multiply for typically when I'm doing a painting is for shadows. So for example, say I wanted the shadows on this guy to be a little bit darker, I would get a nice shadow color, which when you're doing shadows, by the way, pro tip, don't ever select a completely neutral gray. Okay, anything along here you can see, no matter what color I pick, it stays the same because there's no saturation involved. Don't pick straight gray. There's very few circumstances in which you should do that, and it's going to make your art look really muddy and really stale. Put a little bit color in your shadows. Alright, so for multiply, I would use this for throwing down shadows. So you can see here it's multiplying by whatever's underneath, and if I wanted to add this shadow underneath his neck, I could do it like this. Maybe I want some in his eye. Okay? That's how multiply works. And you can stack this with multiple layers. If I were to create another layer with multiply, it would just multiply even further. So all the places I already drew some on, it would get even darker. You can still see everything underneath. It just multiplies it to make it darker. Okay? So next layer that we're going to talk about is, let's clear this. So we have linear burn and color burn. These have really specific uses that I don't usually use, and in this video I'm just going to be going over the main ones that I use. Maybe in another video I'll go over those, but as far as darken goes, I pretty much only use multiply. In lighten, we have some more options. Screen is basically the opposite of what we just did in multiply. It instead divides everything by the color you're using and lightens it, right? So I'm using this blue, it's lightening everything up. You can use this for highlights. It allows you to see the patterns underneath. Like if you have a lot of, say you're painting like a tiger and you want to lighten it up using some highlights, but you want to still be able to see the stripes underneath, you could use this. That's one way to do it. That's what lighten does. Or screen, sorry, that's what screen does. Lighten and add are kind of variations on that. Color dodge. You can use color dodge for kind of burning out colors, burning out your highlight. So turn the opacity way down. Say I really wanted to burn out the highlights on his nose. I would pick a really bright color, and when I paint over this, it just brightens anything with that saturation, with that hue around it, and brings it up in brightness. So you can see it really warms up any highlights there might be. I usually just use this as like a finishing touch on things. Okay, there's that one. Add does a similar thing. Lighten, just experiment. I don't usually use those a lot. Overlay. Okay, so I use overlay quite a bit. Overlay, let's go ahead and clear this. What overlay does is it creates a layer that, it's basically like a transparency. It doesn't really darken or lighten anything. It just changes the hue of everything to bring it closer to whatever your selected color is. So let's say I have this blue selected and I fill the entire page with blue. Everything is going to have a blue overlay as if you're looking through a transparent piece of blue plastic. Okay? What you can use this for, if you were to bring the opacity way down, it would just give either a cool or a warm feel to your painting depending on what color you used. It can help unify your colors if you feel like your colors are all over the place and you're having a hard time adjusting them to look cohesive. You can throw overlay on top of everything, and that will kind of bring some unity to your colors. I also use this for casting either warm or cool light on certain objects. So say I want like the top half of him to feel like it's being cast by sun. I'll select like this airbrush and I'll paint over the top, which makes it feel like the top half is maybe getting hit by sunlight and the bottom half is more in shadow. Okay, so that's overlay. I use it all the time. It's very useful. Hard light and soft light are both kind of, you can use it for lighting or similar effect as overlay with just less power behind it. I don't use it a lot, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. Difference, I almost never use any of these. Difference just takes the difference between the colors, between your selected color and the color underneath it, and subtracts it to find a new color. Subtract just finds the, I'm trying to remember here. Subtract finds the difference between the values and the color that you have on top and bottom from your layer on top, and subtracts it to bring the new color. I rarely use that. And then color, I don't use a lot either. But I mean, you can just flip through these, find what you like. So the main ones I used, go over again, overlay, which I use for creating warmth and tying colors together. Screen, which I use for lightening things. Color dodge you can use to really burn out your highlights. And then darken, multiply I use for my shadows, which just multiplies it by everything underneath. So, and I was going to show you guys an example that, some examples in this painting here, okay? So this is my overlay layer. It's really subtle. I don't know if you can even see it, but if I turn it up a little bit, I've just brought all my colors in to make the whole thing a little bit warmer. You can barely see a difference, okay? Let's see, we have, this subtract layer. This is an example where I used it. If you look what it looks like on normal, it's this kind of brownish red color. But I put it on subtract and it gave it a nice effect with the background. Normal layer. So this is an example of when I use screen. We're going to set this to normal so you can see what it looks like. This is a light bleed image, and when I go ahead and set it to screen, everything that's black disappears and everything that is lighter than black shows up and divides by the color underneath it. Remember, this is the opposite of multiply. And so what it does is it gives it this awesome light bleed effect, like when you take a photograph. So that's one example of when you can use screen. Here's another example of a light bleed that I was experimenting with. Okay, and then the last one is multiply. So down here you can see I have my little logo down in the corner, and you could just lower the opacity, or you could also set it to multiply, which will allow it to multiply with the colors underneath instead of just being see-through. So anyways, hope that helped you guys. If you want to see more tutorials like this, if you want to see more tutorials, then be sure to comment. Let me know what you want to see. Hopefully this was helpful for you guys, and if you like what you saw, be sure to subscribe. Have a great day, guys. Bye.